So I'm going to be talking about, this is going to be the mulligan guide that kind of talks about what you should keep and what you shouldn't keep while playing this deck list. This is currently the most popular deck list in Legend since the post Twin Slice nerf. So the Twin Slice nerf changed a little bit how you play the deck and how you're supposed to keep cards. Even though these numbers may not 100% represent it, because I think people are still playing the deck wrong a lot of the time. So I also wanted to go over some of my games. Let's go through each of these cards and understand when we should keep it, when we shouldn't. There's some cards you always keep, usually represented by a 99% kept rate. Of course, I'm looking at statistics in Legends, so these are at least players who are usually decent and enough at the game. So Battle Fiend, of course, insta-keep. Blazing Battle Mage, you insta-keep. Boneshiro Brawler, I would say, would be an insta-keep. Some people apparently disagree with me on this. And it has a lower win rate here. But I think this card is really good against most decks in the meta right now. It lines up very well against any sort of deck that puts minions onto the board, and it also avoids a lot of removal with like Warrior's Weapons right now. And so it just kind of usually takes the blow for a Battle Fiend. In a mirror matchup and against a Hunter, I'll often coin this out on turn 1 if I'm on the play. The next one's Umberwing. You keep Umberwing literally all the time. It's your best card. It sets up your Satyr Overseer. It sets up your Glavebound Adept, and it's very good for tempo and applies pressure, and so it's very important you have these. So those are the 4 cards that I think are really auto-includes. Another one is Beaming Sidekick. I think people sleep on this card. You want to keep it probably the majority of the time, even if you don't have a Battle Fiend, Blazing Battle Mage, or something else that you want to buff with it, because it's very likely you're going to draw one of these cards, or you're going to play a Satyr on turn 3 or 4, depending if you have the coin or not. So let's just say for 4 mana, you're going to play a Satyr plus buff it, and that's usually a pretty good turn, especially if they're not able to remove it. It puts a threat on the board. And makes it easier. So you definitely want to keep those. I think it's a mistake to keep 3-drops most of the time. The only time I would keep Satyr is if I already had an Umberwing. So if I have an Umberwing Satyr hand, I will probably keep it. Twin Slice, it says 50-50, and I think the community as a whole is very 50-50 on this card. This was a lot stronger keep when it was 0 mana, because you could go Battle Fiend, Twin Slice, either turn 1 or turn 2. You can't do that so much anymore, except on turn 2. So in the mirror matchup, it's really good. Or you're against any deck that plays Blazing Battle Fiend on turn 1 or turn 2 for you. If you're on the play, it's even better. Because a Twin Slice now plus a Battle Fiend on turn 2 is a very strong play if you also are killing a minion. Now, this is also like very suspicious if they don't play anything out on turn 1 or turn 2. So especially against decks like Priest, Druid, these are probably not the cards you want to be keeping, Twin Slice at least. So this is very matchup dependent, and I think 50-50 may just be the matchup dependency here. You really want this against decks that are putting creatures out early onto the board, and you really don't want this against decks that aren't doing that. So I would probably keep Twin Slice against Hunter, Rogue, Paladin if you see them, and that's about it, and the mirror matchup. And probably not against Priest, Druid, or Warlock. Chaos Strike, I think, is a trap. When I started playing the deck, I used to keep it a lot, and then I realized it's pretty terrible because your turn 2, you want to be putting minions on the board, which is why Umberwing is so strong on turn 2. Umberwing puts power on the board and helps deal with removing something your opponent plays. Chaos Strike doesn't do that. It helps you, it's removal. It's literally removal that replaces itself. So this is a big trap. If you're keeping this in your opening, you just never should do it. Like there's almost never an excuse to keep Chaos Strike. You always want to be looking for something else. Also, another thing is I found it's very beneficial to very aggressively mulligan for the things that you want in this deck. I-Beam's another one. It's got a 15% keep rate. The only time I've kept I-Beam, if it's already on the very left-hand side of my hand, and I'm playing against Demon Hunter or Hunter. That's it. That's the only time you keep this, because it does help deal with their threats at a very efficient cost of 1 mana, and you can play another card down. So like a good play would be like turn 1 Blazing Battle Mage, and then turn 2 Battle Fiend, Blazing Battle Mage, I-Beam. Whatever they played on turn 1 or turn 2. The problem is your curve normally doesn't support having 1 extra mana on turns 1, 2, and 3, because you want to be putting down either a 3-drop or a 2-drop plus hero power, or so this can replace that on turn 2 if or on turn 3 if you want to play down a 2-drop plus an I-beam. It's still suspicious to keep it, but I think that the only case is if it's on the left side of your hand and you're in the mirror matchup or against a hunter. That's literally it. You really never want to keep any cards that are above 3 mana. Again, only keeping Satyr if you have Umberwing already. Don't keep Satyr if you don't have Umberwing, because you really want to go Umberwing into Satyr. That's a very strong play on turn 3. A lot of decks can't match that amount of stats being put on the board at once. And often you'll just get ahead on board. Valkyria, yeah, all these cards, and then everything else is pretty bad. Some people keep Skull, and I think that's a mistake. You really want to put early pressure on the board as soon as you can. And the decks that you're going to go long with, where you're going to guarantee get to turn 6 and cast a Skull, because the people who are keeping this are probably keeping it already on the left side of their hand, or keeping it to where they'll have it on the left side of their hand by turn 6. And just the real mistake here is that you have a slot in your hand now that's not going to be very effective on the board, and this is a tempo deck. You want to be playing something that helps your board state every turn that you can. So there's really no reason to keep any of these cards besides maybe Satyr. So anything above 3 I probably wouldn't keep. So these are really the cards you're looking for, and I say mulligan pretty aggressively for these cards. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to look through some of my games and see if there was places that I could have done better and kind of study why I mulligan the way that I did. So this is a hand. This is interesting because a lot of people here would be tempted to keep I-beam. And I think that this hand especially is a full mulligan. You really want to be looking hard for any of your 1-drops or your 2-drops to get something on the board, because this is against Rogue. So Rogue is going to have a lot of removal to remove your threats, and if you're not playing out threats on turns 1, 2, and 3, they're going to have enough removal for your turn 4, 5, and 6 play that you're not going to be able to keep up with them, and they're going to overwhelm you. So I do believe this is a full mulligan, really looking for a 1-drop, 2-drop. I-beam here is an argument for it, but there's nothing that this hits in the Rogue deck. So let's bring up the Rogue list. This is the most popular list in the last 3 days in Legend. And if we see, there's not really any early threats. Pharaoh Cat's not threatening enough. The stealth version, you can't even hit this with I-beam until it's already traded into your minion. Again, stealth minion, it's already traded. And Evil Miscreant, again, these are not big targets. Your big targets here are Edwin Van Cleef and Questing Adventure. Those are really their only threats. Greyhaired Sage, sure, but like you'd rather, by the time they're on turn 3, you wish you want a full board already. Like you want to have some, especially on the play, you want to have something down turns 1, 2, and 3. This hand is very much a full mulligan, looking for those early game threats. So let's take a peek at what I did and see if I did that. And I may keep I-beam here on mistake. I thought about it, and I should come to the conclusion that there's nothing in Rogue that warrants keeping I-beam. And I do get kind of rewarded here. Bone Chewer on turn 2 into Beaming Sidekick on 3, plus a Skull already on the left side of my hand is a very good hand. Probably not the best hand against Rogue. And so my next game was also against Rogue. We'll find a game here against, again, it's very straightforward. You don't need Twin Slice, Chaos Strike's the worst. Twin Slice and Rogue matchup is pretty bad. Double Bone Chewer, so this is an interesting concept. Do you keep 2 Bone Chewers? And I know that I do this game, and I don't know that it's correct. Because in this matchup in particular, I didn't keep it. So that's interesting, because that's the conclusion I was about to come to, is that there's nothing that's going to trigger Bone Chewer. You really put it there to keep their like Pharaoh Cat out of the way. And then that's about it. You really want to be looking for those 1-drops again, mulliganing very aggressively. Aggressive decks have an easier time mulliganing into more aggressive strategies, and I didn't get exactly what I wanted here, but it's still better than hoping to just play very well with Bone Chewers. I suppose I should, so yeah, this is very simple. This is a full mulligan. Like, this is so easy. You see a 6-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop. Against Priest, you want to be super aggressive. You want to try dwindling them down before they can get a bunch of board clears on you. Their board clears start at turn 3, dealing 2 damage to everything. So this is a pretty straightforward decision, the full mulligan. And I get pretty nicely rewarded for it. So I'm on the coin this game. Alright, so I have a Blazing, Frozen, Bone Chewer, and Warglaves. This is pretty simple. You want the Blazing against Hunter. You want to have tempo here. So Blazing and Bonechew are good. You might be tempted to keep Frozen Shadow Weaver because goes 1, 2, 3. But Frozen Shadow Weaver on 3 against Hunter isn't even the best play here. So I would probably mulligan this and mulligan Warglaives to look for another 1 or 2 drop to go a little wider. Hunter has a very hard time dealing when you go wide, which means you have a bunch of minions on board. So I would almost look for a Satyr in this slot instead. There is an argument for keeping Shadow Weaver, and I probably wouldn't fault you if you did keep Shadow Weaver just to have the 1, 2, 3 and just mulligan the Warglaives. But mulliganing Shadow Weaver, I think, is probably the correct play. And I think that's what I end up doing, yeah. And I might get punished for it. It's like completely random, yes. I got Warglaives and Valpyra. So like my turn 3 is a little worse now because I have Valpyra instead of the 4-3. But I think it's still worth it in this case because I really would like another 1-drop. I would really want a Beaming Sidekick here instead of the 3-drop so that I can buff my Bone Chewer on turn 3 and then have space to put in my hero power. There's a large strength in having hero power only costs 1 mana. It's a lot easier to fill in your curve if you're missing spots, so looking for another 1 or 2 drop here I think is still correct, rather than even looking for the 3 drop. So I think it's incorrect to keep a 3 drop. So here's another one, pretty easy, full mulligan. You don't want 3 drops. Ultras is really bad. You want him this is your very last threat. It almost doesn't even matter what deck you're playing against. You almost mulligan the same every time. There's only a couple of considerations that are matchup dependent. So, and I think, yeah, it's such an easy mulligan. So I think I said there was an argument for keeping Valpyra or one of the 3 drops, just like guarantee I had something turn 3. But it's just so much better to get as much early pressure on. This deck really strives off of getting early pressure. And so like this isn't the greatest hand, but I still think I made the correct mulligan decision. Like sure, it'd probably be better here having 2 3 drops, but this is still the better mulligan decision looking for a very specific type of opening. So this will be the last hand we look at. This is against Druid, and here we have on the coin, we get 2 Twin Slices and a Blazing Battle Mage and a Skull. So getting rid of the Skull is pretty important. In the Druid matchup, there's nothing that Twin Slice hits. So while previous to the Twin Slice nerf, it was probably important. If you take anything out of this video, previously to Twin Slice nerf, it was probably a good thing to keep this, even against decks that it wasn't very good against, because you could get the tempo if you drew a Satyr or a Glavebound. Those cards used to combo very well together, and now they don't because it still costs 1 mana. So it's probably best here just to mulligan all 3 of these and just keep the Blazing Battle Mage. So I think that's what I end up doing. I don't know why I even think about the Skull play. Just, yeah. Ooh, do I misplay? Do I keep the Twin Slice? Yeah, I should realize that I'm playing against Druid. So no mistakes from me this game. And I get pretty heavily rewarded here. I go 1, 2, 3. Nice curve. And I have a Skull on the left side once turn 6 rolls around, which is pretty important. Maybe not as important in the Druid matchup because I want to be killing them close to turn 6 or 7. So, yeah, that's about it. It's a pretty simple deck to mulligan with, but I think people are still making a lot of mistakes. Whenever I play against other Demon Hunters, I see them keeping a lot of weird stuff. So I hope this clears up anything that you were suspicious about or didn't fully understand. And if you want to see me play this deck, this is currently my favorite deck in Standard, so if you want to come down to my stream, I should be streaming the day this video releases. Otherwise, my schedule is Monday, Thursday, Friday at 9 p.m. Central Time to 11 p.m. Central Time. I only stream 6 hours a week. So if you want to come down and say hi, feel free to. Otherwise, I'll have all my socials linked in the description. So thanks for watching, and thanks for sticking around.